Hey everybody, welcome to the Herdfit podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herdfit podcast. I'm Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee, and we are making history here on the Herdfit podcast. We are doing our first ever virtual interview with the one and only Bob Jennings, who is a co-director of the Legends Championship. We are now just days away from the 2023 event. Bob, a former Games athlete himself, is joining us from California, kind enough to join us just a couple of hours before he actually has to fly out. He has a business trip ahead of him before he meets us in Tempe, Arizona for the 2023 championship. Bob, thank you so much for giving the time. Really do appreciate it. Can't wait for Thursday. How are you? And again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to talk to both you. And how am I? Before we got on air, I was bitching about Oregon football going down and Villanova basketball going down. So look, I mean, if those are the big problems in my life these days, things are pretty good.
Absolutely. Who do you think should be in the top four for the college football playoff?
It's crazy to keep Alabama out. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've won 11 in a row. They've looked really good. I think their loss to Texas was kind of a fluke.
Yep.
A different team. But I think they're going to go Michigan 1, Washington 2, Texas 3, and then Florida State 4. I mean, in Florida State, look, if Florida State played anybody that was any kind of competition at all, they wouldn't even be considered. But you can't keep an undefeated team out.
Especially out of the ACC.
So,
yeah.
I know. I know. It's crazy, man. Who's going to be there versus who I think should be there.
Right.
Who I think should be there are Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Washington.
Mm. Yep.
Those are the four best teams.
Strong case. Yeah. Well, we'll find out tonight. So Bob, have you really had time to reflect on how far Legends has come? Like, I know you guys really, we had Joe here a couple months ago, give us the whole backstory of Legends and how it started as a local comp inside the gym. Then you guys did an online qualifier. Then you had the COVID situation in Goodyear, Arizona, San Diego, mayhem. This year, back to Arizona State, Tempe, Arizona. Next year, the games or whatever we're going to call it. I guess we don't know that yet. Have you had time to reflect on this yet?
It hits me every once in a while. So, and it's almost always, some weird moment with Joe, or I'll be thinking about Joe, and then, it'll kind of hit me, and I'll send him a text message like, shit, man, this is crazy. I mean, I can't believe that this started off as a puny little one-day comp, and and now here we are, right? Yep. We're running the CrossFit Games for the Masters, and we're going to keep running Legends too, right? So we definitely wanted to make sure that the community was still being serviced the right way. Mm-hmm. So keeping Legends in December and keeping the CrossFit Games in August.
That's awesome, man.
It's crazy. It is really. It's pretty nutty to think about.
It is. And you yourself, you've been a Games athlete. You've qualified 3 times, competed twice, minus the one because of the COVID year. What is it like to go, and you no longer compete? I'm sure you could, though, if you really wanted to, right? What's the transition been like from elite athlete to organizing events for everybody else? What's that been like for you?
Yeah. It's kind of funny, man. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think like during COVID or maybe slightly after COVID, when I was doing the podcast with Justin and those guys, one of them asked me like, hey man, why don't you figure out how to go run the games? And I was like, well, I could never go run the games because then I would have to stop competing. And at that point in time, I just couldn't imagine ever having to give it up. But coming out of the games in 21, my back was destroyed. You know, I mean, my bottom 5 discs were just complete garbage, and you know, and then mentally, I didn't have it anymore. You know, it takes a lot of dedication to get in that gym, and there were just a lot of other things I wanted to do. You know, my son was going off to college. He's up at Oregon. I season tickets for football games. You know, my wife and I fly up every other weekend for that. And my daughter is on the cheer dance squad at her school. And I want to make sure that I get to all of her events. And, you know, she and I are big Swifties. And so traveling around the country to go see Taylor Swift concerts,
awesome.
You know, Formula One races with my son, and you know, just spending more quality time with my wife, and like you just started adding all those things up, and it just didn't fit into the schedule anymore to be an athlete, and you know, and mentally it really didn't fit into the schedule more than anything else, and so you know, transitioning over to just running the event. It's always a little hard, you know, especially the I would say like on day 2 of the event, like once everything is kind of humming along and I have some chances to watch some heats, you know, it's a little hard to sit there and watch everybody out there and be like, oh man, I could totally take this event, or, you know, and then you just realize like, shit, dude, that's ego talking, you know, like just settle down, go back and you know, focus on what you're good at, right? Which is putting this event together. I think that Joe and I have figured out what the community is looking for and how to support everyone, and you know, putting what limited extra time and energy I have, putting it into that is just a little bit more fulfilling at this point.
Hear that. That's a great answer. And I think that's one of the key reasons why I love that you and Joe you guys are at the top of Legends, is that you really can relate to all of us that compete. And that's an answer that's a thought, at least, that I believe many Masters athletes have at some point. It's like, hey, I can, but should I? And it does. Priorities, family, work, they start to have to take priority over training. And you know, I think there's a lot of competitors out there that in the back of their head, they know the end is here or the end is near, but they still want to go after that, you know, call it a dopamine rush of competing that weekend and getting that feeling. But we know, and Bob's saying himself, it's much more than showing up to a comp and doing well in an event. It's a lifestyle that really you have to revolve around training for the entire year, or at least most of the year, to get to that kind of level. Anything, Sam?
Yeah, no? And it's great for people, you know. I mean, I don't begrudge people that are still able to do that, and I think if it fits into your life, like, you know, 100%, the competing lifestyle is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and you know, but to your point, right, at some point you have to put that on the scale against everything else and see where it comes out.
So before we get into the Legends 2023 event, what's the why? Because we do have some backstory that Joe shared with us about, you know, the investment, finance, time, stress that you put into it, that both of you guys have put into it. What's the why behind it? Like, what truly is, why do you keep coming back for another round?
So the why has changed over time. And in the beginning, the why was everyone else is doing this wrong. You know, somebody needs to do it right, and I'm tired of just saying out loud, you know, screaming in the shower, right? Somebody's doing it wrong, right? Like I'm time to go fix it. And so that was the original why, and then it became you know, then the hyper competitive aspect kicked in, and, you know, there was a couple of years there as Joe and I were growing the event where it was, you know, we want to be the best. This needs to be the best. And we're going to do whatever it takes to make it the best. And now that we've established that, right. And I don't think that it's bragging to say that. Like, this is the premier Masters CrossFit competition in the world.
I'll say it. This is the premier CrossFit Masters competition in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never went to MFC, so just to provide a counterpoint, and you won this one, so why wouldn't you say that? But okay,
right, sure, exactly.
All right.
So so now that we're there, we're at the pinnacle of the mountain, right? We've been asked to run the CrossFit Games. Now it's really more about continuing to service the community, picking up and giving back to the sport that we both truly love. It's really a lot more selfless at this point, where I would say, everything prior to that, it was very selfish and ego driven, despite the fact that we put in, tons of time and money into building up the event. It was really more to satisfy ourselves than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. Understand that. Respect that answer. Respect the honesty. Now, a few days away, Legends 2023 as an event. Who from CrossFit should we expect to see there?
Well, probably people that you don't know, right? Like a lot of the behind the scenes folks will be there.
Okay.
But Dave's coming in, Boz is coming in. I think they're, but Boz was there last year, so he knows what to expect from one of our events. Dave, back when he lived in Carlsbad, he saw the event growing up, right? And in the first 3 years in the gym, so I think it'll be good for him to see what it looks like now. But mostly it's kind of the behind the scenes folks that you won't recognize, that are there really to figure out, okay, how do we support a Masters competition that is this big, right? Mm-hmm. That's 420 people in the RX division. What are some of the things that Bob and Joe are going to need extra help with to make sure that 2024 is the best experience and the best CrossFit Games for Masters there's ever been.
Okay. Now, are you trying to, do you feel any extra pressure with these eyeballs there? Like that you're almost trying to show them and press them, like, hey, you guys made the right call in letting Joe and I run the games for the Masters. Is there any extra pressure here?
I would lie if I say there wasn't.
Yeah.
But I would say, I'm a big fan of therapy. I mental, emotional therapy, right? Yep. And so I've been going to a therapist for the last couple of years, and one of the things that I've learned is that more than one emotion and more than one thing can be true at once, right?
Got it.
So, yes, definitely feel a little bit more pressure, but at the same time, they made the right choice. They're fully in with us. We totally know what we're doing, and I'm proud of what we really built. So I'm also kind of in the who gives a fuck mode too. So,
yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of experience with the behind the scenes CrossFit guys at the open announcement.
Yeah.
And I will say everything that I saw with those guys it blew me away how professional and efficient and experienced they were at doing this at a brand new location, setting everything up. I was blown away by the logistics and how good the staff were, all of them. What I'm interested in is that you guys have a ton of experience, and I know from meeting Joe and meeting you that you guys are also very confident, sort of self-assured people who have run this multiple years, and you know what you've been doing. You did it at Mayhem. You did it during COVID. You did it, now you're doing it at a brand new location, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. So I know you guys are on the same page in terms of like making this the best competition possible next year, but it's also going to be sort of an interesting, interaction to see what CrossFit HQ's sort of goals are. They completely in line with your guys' goals, or are they not? Like, where are those little differences going to be? And this is going to be the first year, so obviously it's not going to be perfect next year. But I'm so glad that they're going to be there, and you guys have a whole long run-up of basically a year plus to sort of get all those things ironed out, hopefully.
Yeah, so we're totally aligned, right? Like, we haven't had a single meeting yet, I don't think, where we differed too significantly, right? Like, nobody's thrown out the veto card, right? And what's cool about the relationship is we both have it, right? I would say their veto card is definitely bigger than ours, but we have one as well, and I would even say, like, some of the decisions that have been made, like some of the little bit more controversial ones, I have kind of come from both of us, right? So the 200 per division for the semifinals, right?
Yep.
So that number was originally lower.
Okay.
From CrossFit.
Okay.
And Joe and I pushed back on that because it was only going to be 100, I think. And when it's 100 per division and you have 40 people qualifying, like, it just didn't, it wasn't enough, right? Like, in our opinion, you need at least 4x the number of qualifying spots in order for a qualifier to make a lot of sense.
Did you realize that but did you realize you're going to F them in terms of video submissions and how many people they got to look at now?
No, totally. Yeah. Like, we all walk through all of that, right? Okay. And it's not, we're doing the video submissions too, right? Like, this is all of us that have to manage that.
Right.
But it's funny to watch the interweb blow up with anger every time some decision is made that goes out there, man. And like, that was one to me that I was like, so we came back, we're like, oh, we think it should be like, we originally proposed going back with a graduated participation based model, right? And like, basically have it at 4x for each number of qualifying spots, and then CrossFit came back and we're like, you know what, let's make it just 200 across the board. It goes back to the way AGOQ used to be. And like, yes, they're definitely it's going to be more difficult to, do the video review, but that's what we're signing up for. And let's just do it the best we can. And to your point, Sam, like, is it going to be perfect next year? Absolutely not. Is it going to be perfect in 10 years? Absolutely not. Something goes wrong every single year, right? Expecting perfection is it's not realistic. And, striving for perfection, right, is clearly the goal. But in all the businesses that I run, like, one of the things that I like to say is it celebrates small failures, right? Because that's how you learn and become better. You don't ever want really big failures that blow everything up, but you want to celebrate the small ones. And so we're going to have a lot of small failures, and we're going to celebrate those, and we're going to be really proud of those small failures because they're going to help us do it better the next year and the next year and the next year.
I'm sure Hiller will celebrate right along with you.
Well, and like, look, man, guys like Hiller and Savan and like, they have a business to run, right? And their business is kind of built on negativity, and that's not the energy that I want to bring, man. And so, they can say all they want. They can criticize our programming. They can criticize, me and Joe as people, right? Like, they can criticize my dog. It doesn't matter, look, if they're so disappointed with it, go run it yourself, right?
Yep.
I'm just realizing you're wearing a Michigan shirt.
Yes.
Interview's over.
I was there.
No.
I'm at Michigan.
He's a Michigan guy.
Oh, that's cool.
He has ties to Michigan, so he's not just a front runner.
Yeah. No, I did my residency.
Yeah, no, That's awesome. That's awesome. So you practice, you're helping them steal signs and, doing whatever it takes to win.
He's trying to figure out a way to figure out the Legends workouts so that by your notepad on your desk right
whenever
now.
Michigan against the world.
So look, this is welcome to ADD, right? So my programming and what you guys just experienced is very much a part of it, right? Like I am, I see something, I'm a squirrel now, or he's a squirrel, I'm a dog, right? And it's like Michigan, I can't get it out of my head. Hyper focus on it. Like that's kind of my programming too. Like I'll get a little hyper focused on one movement that I really want to be in the event, and then I'll construct everything around that one movement.
Nice.
Why I do that, I don't know.
Oh, you're good at it. So you're good at you enjoy to always put on a good CrossFit program. I do want to dive into that at some point. But speaking of the media,
sure, yeah.
Will there be? I know there's not going to be a broadcast this year for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Will there be any sort of media coverage? Do you know anyone's coming in to help? Just show what's going on, show your display there.
Yeah, there is actually quite a bit of media coverage coming in, and I don't have any of the names, and I wish I did.
Yeah,
this is Joe's department, so I haven't really paid attention to it, but I know that there are there's multiple photographers, videographers, all that stuff is coming in to help promote the event.
But no streaming, like we can't watch it where
no streaming this year. It's this is one of the funny things about the community that I always find is like if people knew exactly how much it costs to run a stream.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, they wouldn't. There's no way that they would bitch about CrossFit trying to make more money, right, and operate as a business, or Legends, right, trying to operate as a business. Like you can't run a professional level stream without major sponsorship. And given that this is a transition year into the games next year, like it didn't happen. And in the past, when it didn't happen, I wrote a check, and I'm not writing any more checks.
Yeah, you've lost money every year, especially with that high level streaming stuff you guys did, especially last year and before that. So.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be known.
Cool about that, again, it's like fail small. So that is. It's allowed us to get experience with it prior to going into next year's games.
Got it.
And B, understand a little bit about, what do we need to put together in order for the stream to be more widely viewed, right? Like we get a lot of feedback on it every year, and a lot of it is like, hey, how come, Joe Schmo, who came in 39th place, didn't get a lot of airtime? And it's like, well, he came in 39th place, man. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you about that. Like streaming, it needs to tell a story, and in order to do that, in order for it to be effective, right? Like me personally, you guys tell me, and I think I'm taking us wildly off course here, but like, I'm not a big fan of the set up a camera, really wide angle, no content, no context, no live announcers. Like it just, you might as well just look at the leaderboard and see what happens after the fact.
Agreed. Because even in that situation, Bob, if you put the camera that's no commentators, just put it in the corner, you're still going to have 10 people that are on the other side of that floor that you can barely see. They're like little ants, like that you're going to get complaints about that, like if you could rotate through multiple cameras, you could do that. But now you're talking about manpower to do that. You can't just set up a phone or a camera on a stand and hope for the best. So I agree. I mean, I think the way that you guys did it was the best possible way to have a broadcast. But again, the money always at some point has to come into play.
It also will affect your programming. So since you're not streaming anything this year, you don't have to worry so much about how it looks visually. But I assume next year you're really going to have to think about how you could see how the athletes are progressing and how far they are and who's against whom and all these things, which you didn't even have to worry about this year when you programmed this year, right?
Yeah. So the previous 2 years, we always had to think about flow, but flow from the perspective of a visual audience. Right. And this year we still have to think about flow. We have to think about people moving through the floor, and first thing is always safety, right? So we're always thinking about flow from a safety perspective first, right? But then in, the last 2 years, it's been, okay, once we have safety nailed, now we have to think about the camera and where the cameras are and making sure that, it tells the story that way. It's so much easier just to think about safety and a live audience when it comes to floor flow and programming. Next year look, we've already started programming for next year.
That's awesome.
Right. So
does that include quarterfinals, semifinals? Are you just right now focused on games programming? When you say right
now really focus on games.
Okay.
But we will be involved in the previous rounds.
So you can really have a stronger case for reverse engineering, right? Like you do the games and then you're like, all right, now that we have this at the games, what do I want to test at semis to make sure that people get to the games able to do that? And then you have the quarters and open. That's really cool. I've always thought that's what you should do, that you program the final event first, at least most of it, and then you reverse engineer.
Yeah, but that's more complicated.
That's what
they're doing all the events the same too, right? For individuals and
for quarterfinals, I believe they're all the same, right? For the quarterfinals, Masters and Open Division are the same workouts. They'll probably change according to what division, but I think semifinals are separate.
Do you have input on quarters for next year?
Yeah, so it basically, our input, it's a curve based on our, how much it becomes exclusively Masters, right? So, Open, very little input. Quarters, we got a little bit more input. Semis will be, more of a collaboration between us and the teen division, right? Okay. And then, the games will be us. Awesome. And obviously CrossFit they're weighing in all along the way, because they want to make sure that their brand's on the line.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep. So, and we're still feeling each other out a little bit. Right. And while they think that they, know and trust Joe and I, they got to make sure that we're not lunatics too. Right. So
the right kind of lunatics.
With that in mind, because I've heard you speak about programming for Legends and just competition in general. And one thing I like about you guys is that you do stick to CrossFit. Like you don't try to get too cute. You are creative, but it's still classic CrossFit when you dumb it down. Do you have a rank, without giving anything up right now, because I know the workouts are coming out in 2 days, and but do you have a rank, if you will, in terms of what you think is most important to test? Or do you try to really evenly distribute?
Yeah, we try to make it as even as possible.
Yep.
Because this isn't a powerlifting competition. It's not a strength competition. It's not a endurance competition, right? It's CrossFit.
Right.
So you really, every time we put it together and every revision that we go through, and like Joe and I will go through hundreds of revisions.
Wow.
We're always looking at it holistically and saying, okay, do we have balance, right? And not only balance from, are we testing endurance versus power and high skill gymnastics versus, pure strength but also, we like to make sure that we have balance across the impact on the athlete's body as much as possible as well. Yep. Right. There are definitely years where we come out and we're like, oh, wow, that was a really grippy year, or like, wow, we really, we hammered the posterior chain there. But again, we like to make sure that we want to test people as hard as we possibly can without breaking them long term.
Yeah.
We saw Joe a couple months ago, and you guys hadn't finalized everything for this year when we talked to him.
Yep.
I assume they're all finalized now. So now you're looking at your programming coming up. You better. It's like in a couple days. Out of a scale,
Here's
what?
well, go ahead. Ask your question.
I was gonna say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like this is the perfect ideal programming for this comp, and I am so psyched.
Yeah.
Versus like one, like we made so many compromises, and this there's so many issues here. Like, how happy are you with this year's programming, say, versus last year's or the year before? Like, how complete? How good of a test, how safe, like all those things.
Yeah. So I think our best programming ever was 2 years ago.
Oh, San Diego.
I thought
San Diego.
Yeah.
That was great.
I thought last year was pretty good. I really like this year's programming a lot.
Awesome.
I think last year we tested a little bit, like we didn't have anything heavy really last year, which is outside of the norm for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we got some good heavy back in there, and I mean, look, the movement standards are out, so I'm not really giving anything away. There's no machines
deadlift.
There was a deadlift in the movement standard that has been released to everybody.
Better lift heavy, dude.
Yeah, well, there's heavy. And there's different ways to go heavy.
Can I make a prediction?
Sure. Yeah.
So the equipment vendor is Titan. Is that what they're called?
No, first of all,
they are called Giant.
Sorry. Giant.
Yeah. Yep.
I've followed their Instagram ever since Joe came out and announced that was the equipment vendor, and they've been putting a lot of action, a lot of videos into their trap bar.
Ooh, trap bar deadlift?
That would be a really cool test. A trap bar 1 rep max deadlift, or they on their Instagram videos they have them carrying them back and forth. I'm like visualizing like a trap bar deadlift workout where you have to advance the barbell, carry it X amount, because you can't really do that with a barbell. You can't carry a barbell.
Yeah.
So that's my out of the box prediction that we're gonna be using a trap bar.
I wish I'd thought of it.
All that practice for
I'm telling you, it's already giving me ideas for next year.
Cool. I think trap bar would be a cool test because it's different than a deadlift.
Yeah, for sure.
Has Bob ever repeated workouts from year to year?
That's a better question for you because I've only competed there 3 years. I know you guys went so here's another. I spent too much time thinking about this shit, but they were very repeat happy in the qualifier this year. They switched the workouts up a little bit, but they were and Joe put that out there that they were all either like past workouts or different versions of past workouts. And again, if these guys reverse engineer, I could see, a repeat. And I do think Joe did say on our podcast, there is a repeat this year, but then he said it could be from a Legends event or any games event ever. So
that
really hurt my spreadsheet there when he said that. But
do you like repeats philosophically?
Yeah. What's your thought on repeats?
I don't like pure repeats, right? So as you can tell from the qualifying programming, right? Like, I don't think there was anyone that was a pure repeat. Either we like reversed them, changed the weight a little bit, swapped out a movement, because to us it's fun to watch the stimulus change just by making a small tweak.
Yeah.
And it's fun to show people that like you can have a totally different event, or qualifying, just by making a couple of really small tweaks. It will completely shuffle up the leaderboard and also impact the athletes in a different way.
You're right.
So here's kind of my general thought on that. So there's a following that same philosophy of a tweak, right? There is one workout that is similar, but it's been tweaked.
Which means it might be totally different stimulus-wise.
Yeah. Similar to what? To your favorite programming from San Diego?
No, it's actually from Arizona.
Oh, Arizona.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mesh of two from Arizona.
Okay. That'd be cool.
And look, I like you guys know that I love the 2-parters on Sunday. Right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
expect a 2-parter on Sunday, and that I love them to be like 2 very different stimuluses.
Yep.
Right. And so kind of expect that. It's the thing that we're always challenged with. Like there are events that I really, really want to do that I've seen programmed elsewhere that we're just never really able to do because of with a 420 person event and having limited fields of play, right? You can only there's just not enough time to do them.
Right.
Right. And so, like one of the events that I'm 100% building the games around next year.
Okay.
Is something that Joe and I tried to get inserted this year.
Okay.
And we had to modify it a lot because it couldn't fit into the schedule.
Understood. So, yeah. I mean, you guys think the games are big. The amount of games athletes compared to the amount of Masters athletes at the games, it's like 10%.
Yeah. That's why Masters is so hard to run.
Yeah.
Even for when the CrossFit guys did it, it's just so many more athletes.
Yep.
For every division.
Yeah.
I know it hasn't been really.
Sorry, on that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's judges and volunteers, right? Like you're 100% limited by judges and volunteers.
Yes.
So, I mean, if that wasn't a problem, if we could use AI to do judging, right?
Someday.
The shit that I could do would be just so fun.
Now my mind's speculating what they wanted to do this year that they couldn't do logistically.
We'll have to combine some thoughts there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have been some of the struggles again, just on the whole logistical side? Now you guys are introducing scaled and team division this year, and while they're not big divisions, they're still something you have to really put into the plan. Has that been net positive, net negative in terms of planning the event?
Net negative.
Yeah,
100%. And it's not the team so much. The challenge with the team is, making sure that you can have 4 athletes safely on the floor.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And so, for the Legends event next year, not for the CrossFit Games, we're probably going to include, we're going to include team, but maybe like partner instead of teams of 4, right? Because it's just you got to think about safety and equipment and and all that other stuff.
4 stuff.
On the scaled side, we've tried so hard, guys, and we really want to support the community, but it is just so hard to get them to show up, right? I mean, they just don't show up.
Right.
The numbers that you need in order to make them not a financial drain,
right,
and a resource drain on the event, which unfortunately they are.
Right.
Are you making money this year, you think, finally?
Breaking even.
Oh, okay.
Good for you. Progress.
All that work for $0, exactly, net profit 0.
Yeah.
We received the movement list from Joe.
Yep.
And should we expect any surprises that are not on that list? Should CrossFitters be ready for anything?
No.
# no machines from Joe's email last night.
Yeah, no machines, right? Which this is definitely the year of no machines.
Interesting.
Which we've talked about no machines since year 1.
Okay.
And And originally it was because machines are totally unreliable.
Yep.
Right. And
Amen.
we like, all we can think about is fairness all the time. Right. Like, we want to make sure that the event is fair, and, people are spending their hard-earned money to come compete at this event for, very relatively little prize money and, no fame or, anything that comes along with winning an event. Right.
Mm.
And so when you have equipment failures, that introduces a level of unfairness into play. Right. And so for years, we had been looking to get rid of it. Also, like, the unreliability of the actual manufacturers of the equipment to deliver the equipment to us and assemble that equipment, and, all of the stuff that comes along with that. But then also this year, it just kind of became like, it'll be fun, right? Like, people are so used to machines that they forget that there's so many other ways to, really, we use machines primarily to spike your heart rate. Right. Like, I can spike your heart rate in, a lot of different ways. I don't need an external stimulus to help that.
That's awesome. Especially masters athletes. I think I find myself on the machines almost every day, and it's kind of like, because it's easy, it's kind of like a crutch. Like, it's and masters athletes, we feel safe on it, and I like that. I mean, I'm a machine guy, but I respect going no machines. Just like that year, 1 year at regionals where CrossFit went no barbell. Like, they found ways to test strength, right? And I remember Dave Castro talking about how everyone just gets so caught up in barbell. Like, if you want to be strong, there are so many ways to test it other than that. So if you want a good engine, there are so many ways to test and train that, other than being on the machine.
All right, get off the machine and start doing more burpees.
Yeah,
dude.
I guess so. Come on.
Well, look, I mean, event 8, I can tell you for certain, like, I'm going to spike the shit out of every single person's heart rate. Like, and everyone is going to hate my guts after event 8.
You better get the deep.
Will that be
machine?
Is that Saturday?
No, it's Sunday. So it's 7 and 8 are the 2-parter on Sunday.
Okay. So I know Joe said that he's going to start releasing these workouts on Tuesday. Last year, and I think previous years, you guys released
until Wednesday.
Oh,
but
shit, man. Okay, so because I remember
maybe it's Tuesday.
Last year, you guys release them all at once. Will you be sporadically releasing them to make it a little bit more dramatic? Like, here's one at a time.
No, I think we're going to release them all at once.
Yeah. Okay.
I like to. My preference is to release them the night before.
Yep.
But
mess with our sleep.
Yeah.
So
because it's part of the event, right?
Right.
I mean,
it's huge.
You know,
it's huge.
Like, you get the event at the athlete briefing.
Yep.
And
that is cool. There's an element.
I don't know. Maybe I can talk to you.
Well, that also is nice because then you can't game your whole 4 days. You have to, like, just do what you can for that day. You don't know what's happening the next day. So if you knew, then you're like, okay, maybe I can, like, dial back this day because I know I could kill it the next day. Like, that just means you got to go ham every day and just wait and see what comes out the next day.
How are you guys announcing? Email, Instagram, both?
Yeah, email, Instagram.
Okay.
And like Competition Quarter automatically notifies.
Okay. Last question about the event I have for if Sam has anything.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be doing briefings each night at the end of the event at the end of each day? Because that last time I saw you do that, it was the most angry and closest I've ever seen you and Joe to wanting to punch someone in the face. Those are rough, man. I'm telling you, those are rough.
Yeah, they're pretty rough. I don't think so. Also, with the schedule, with the addition of team and scaled, like, we're going until I got it in front of me right here. We're going on Saturday. On Friday, we go until like 7:00 at night, and Saturday we're going until 9:00 at night.
Wow.
So,
I'm sure the briefings will be fun.
I'm doing a briefing at 10, right? Or the last heat ends at 8:50. So, I don't know. That would be kind of rough. But we have you guys out of there. Last heat ends on Sunday at 2:48.
Great. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
'Cause I know some of the people I think we have a dozen people coming out from Bison, well over a dozen.
Yeah.
And they all want to know when we can actually go out for fun Sunday night. So I'll let them know that we'll be good for dinner time.
Where's the nearest bar?
Yeah. Well, you got to collect your podium, man, and then head out. Right.
I hope so.
So-
I hope so.
How many
You and me both.
how many games athletes or names are going to be there competing that I'll be sorry that I will be missing on no streaming for this?
Dozens. I didn't actually count up the number this year.
Who are you excited to see out there?
Dave.
Oh,
Barely.
okay.
David's probably I sent Joe a text message yesterday and I said, I know I'm not allowed to root for people, but I do, man. He's I'll say it to your face since you're here. Like, you're a model of what every athlete should be. Like, you're super humble. You put the work in. You're such a great guy. You never complain. You understand the business aspects of it. Like, you're very appreciative of what we do. You're just, you're a fucking awesome dude.
Appreciate it.
David Johnson's another guy like that. Unfortunately, he can't compete this year. The women 50 to 54 is going to be a pretty good battle this year.
We got one coming out. Kathleen.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Did I see Jen Ryan's competing? Jen Ryan, Dan Bailey. Is Bailey going to compete?
Dan Bailey just dropped out. Yes.
Really? That stinks.
Yeah. And
No
I
glory.
think it's because he's afraid of you.
Right.
Oh, that stinks. I was looking forward to competing against him.
Yeah. I don't know the reason why he had to drop, and it's not fair of me to bust his chops when he's not here.
Yeah.
But, it's gonna be, it's gonna be like it is every year, right? You're gonna have, probably 50, 60 games athletes, if not more.
Wow.
And then the best people who have never made the games, right? Yourself included, that go out there and actually show those guys that in a 40-person competition, it's a lot different than a 10-person competition.
Absolutely. 100%.
You can't have holes anywhere in your game.
Mm-hmm. So let's wrap this up just talking about the future, Bob. Just kept you a little bit longer than we thought. But, you already talked about you beginning on the 2024 Masters Games, or whatever you guys are calling it. Can we expect a certain time or date to hear when the actual date and location of the event will be next year?
Yeah. So
when will that be?
So the first thing is, it is the Masters CrossFit Games by Legends, right? So that is the name of the event.
Oh.
It is going to be the third week of August.
Okay.
Or at least that's what we're shooting for, right? We still do not have a venue yet. Okay. That is suitable.
Okay.
So we kind of had to put those efforts on pause a little bit over the last couple of weeks, just leading up to the event this year.
Okay.
But I want to have the venue wrapped up by the Friday after Legends.
Got it.
And just so we can, because it really, that affects everything else, right?
Absolutely.
It even affects programming.
Yep.
Right. If I have some interesting environmental options to throw into an event, like, I'm gonna want to do that. As long as it's not gimmicky.
Yeah. I mean, part of that thought process is heat related, right? I mean, there's certain parts of the country you just really can't play around with too much outside if you're in August. Other parts of the country, it's fine. But That's going to be interesting to hear that. And I know I empathize with that, in that you do probably need to put all the attention on the event that's coming up in just a few days, and then you really kind of make that final call a few days later.
Is this going to be next year the 2024 Noble Masters Games by Legends, or Rogue, or Giant, or I don't know? Like, how do you decide that, or is that CrossFit deciding it? And the other thing is finance has been such a big thing in the past couple of days about CrossFit HQ. Like, are they like, you better make this break even at least next year, or you guys are out, or, whatever? Like, are there financial constraints that you have in mind when you're thinking about next year?
So the first question again was
sponsorship,
naming rights, sponsorship, right? So that's primarily driven by CrossFit, and so I'm sure there will be an announcement coming out in the near future, probably in December, around naming rights. And I'm not being coy there. I actually don't know who the main sponsors are. Then what was the second?
Financial constraints.
ADD in action, man.
Financial constraints, considerations.
CrossFit's a business, right? Legends is a business. Businesses need to be profitable. I empathize with all of the affiliate owners that had their affiliate fees raised on them in the last couple of weeks, but I really see it more from the business point of view. And in one of the businesses that I run, for example, we raised our rates for the first time in 6 years, and inflation is a big factor in that, right? While the consumer, of course, is being impacted by inflation and the rates of the goods and services that they consume, businesses are as well, and those costs have to be passed on somewhere, or else you stop providing services, right? And so we expect to operate at a profit for Legends for next year, or sorry, not for Legends, for the CrossFit Games for next year. I mean, that's our goal, but that's only going to come from sponsorship and participation.
Yep. And you know this based on the fact that this year might be the first year you're going to break even after all these years. Like, that's a huge order for anyone to execute on. Like, the CrossFit has not been able to do that for themselves. Like, so what is your confidence coming from that you can do this next year? Like, make it profitable, make it work, like make it a real event that's huge and like successful and all those. Like, that's like a huge order for anyone to sort of execute.
Yeah, it comes from the marriage of Legends and CrossFit, right? So we're able to tap into their scale and their network, to provide cost efficiency on scale, and then increase revenue opportunities on, their network, right? So, and then with us, we operate a much leaner operation, and we can, when you get into an event, right? Like, and you have 420 people, signing up, and participation fees and things like that. Like, just the way they come together work well, I think, where both companies at a minimum will break even, certainly, should operate at a profit. And I don't think anybody should be embarrassed to say that, right? It blows my mind that the people on, the interweb again, going after the CrossFit HQ for operating a for-profit business. It's like, what do you expect? Right? Like, you cannot get better service from your provider if you don't pay them for it.
Right.
It's just.
Yep. I mean, we're actually doing an episode soon, Sam and I, on the increased prices, and the irony is, for the first time in 5 years, we're increasing our rates on existing members in January.
Yeah.
And it's the same exact situation, and it's nice to have the perspective of being on both sides, because I do think if you are on both sides of that argument, discussion, even, you get it, right? Like everyone that I know that owns a business that comes to our gym, when we did have discussions about raising rates, they're like, I get it. Like they have both sides of the perspective. And it's like you said, if you want this thing to operate, it needs to make money, period. And in most cases, more than you think. That's how much it needs. So that's
100% more than you think.
Do you trust?
We never, as business owners, we never pass on the appropriate amount of increased costs that we're taking on.
Absolutely.
We never do.
Never.
And we're doing a disservice to our employees, our shareholders, and the people that are requiring the service.
Yep.
Is this going on live right now? Is this for real?
Is that it?
Or is this just somebody?
I thought it was tonight that it comes out.
I was a little distracted, but I didn't want to focus on what was.
I can't see on your TV what number 4 says. Is that Florida State?
Yeah, it's blank right now. There.
No, it's blank right now.
Oh.
Oh no, this is live.
Oh, so it's Texas.
Wow.
Holy.
All right, so we'll see. I think we should.
Okay, so
extend the podcast. Number 4.
we're probably gonna get sued for broadcasting.
They might. We'll have to crop that out a little.
All 6 viewers that we have. No, we're not live anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that is a task that, I think most of us, especially people from my gym, really like into it, Masters community, a lot of competitors, a lot of people that follow the sport, a lot of people that support you guys. When they think about Legends in the event, it's almost always about the programming, the athletes that are there. But it is like 1,000% it's a business. And if we do truly, I know you've talked about this, I've been very strong about this as well, that if people truly want to see something succeed so that they can actually benefit from it, they need to do everything they can to contribute to it, whether it's spending money on sponsors, whether it's showing up, and whether it's participating qualifiers, putting messaging out on social media, like anything is great, really. But to ignore it, and at some point it's going to die down to the bottom and it's going to disappear unless people really put themselves out in front. Because I always say that my line on this is always, everyone's going to be a Masters athlete at some point. I have people that are 33 in my gym right now that are now amping up their training for when they turn 35. And I'm telling you, that's not the only case. There are people all over the world, and that's going to be a constant feeder system into master sports. So we need to find a way to make sure you guys are profitable. And I've always told you guys, like, you have our word that we'll do everything we can to help you guys out.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. You guys have been just hugely supportive over the years. It's been so great. It's like Georgia got 6, by the way.
Yeah, so now they're going to dumb it down to Bama or Florida State.
Bama or Florida State.
That's going to
be Florida State. And yes,
could you imagine?
Wait, Bama's in. FSU's out.
Oh, man,
undefeated FSU.
Wow,
coming in at number 5.
That's a tough 1-4 matchup. I don't know how.
I'm
pissed at the Michigan guy. We got to play Bama.
Man, I put $50 on Florida State win the national championship. That's why I'm pissed.
Well, now you got to win the Legend so you can make your money back.
Well, I also put I put $50 on Michigan too. So it was one of those two that I'm getting. All right, Bob, is there any message you want to get out? Any sponsors you want to shout out? Just anything that you want to make sure you can get out there before we call quits?
Yeah. First Phorm apparel, giant lifting, equipment sponsor, volunteer shoe sponsor, tier. These guys year in, year out, specialty equipment sponsor, RX Smart Gear. These guys have supported Legends in a big way every single year. Please, 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 keep showing up and making it worth their while to put in all the time and effort that they do to support us. Charity this year is Underground PDX. It's a nonprofit CrossFit gym up in Portland for underprivileged youth. show up, right? Next year is such a critical year for the sport of Masters CrossFit. You got to show up in the open. You got to show up for the quarterfinals. You got to show up for the semis. And if you can make it in person, if you don't end up qualifying for the games, come out, make sure you watch the live stream. The support has to be there. This is your sport, right? You, the community. And the only way that continues to grow and can be serviced the way that you want it to is your support. So
awesome. Bob, thanks again so much for the time.
Yeah.
Really, really do appreciate it. I know you're not up in the public spotlight as much as you used to be, and I really do appreciate you giving us the time now. Thank you, both as an athlete, as a gym owner, for everything that you're doing. And like I said, you always have my support, Bison support, and we cannot wait to see what you guys have in store for us Thursday through Sunday.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herdfit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.